It is not by chance, nor by might, that these words came into my life, but through spoken law. It was by divine law, the unseen but unbreakable power of thought and word made manifest. There was a time when I wandered in lack, believing that struggle was noble and scarcity was real. But the moment I understood that my word was my wand, that I could speak riches into being as surely as I had spoken limitation, the tides began to turn. I did not strive, I declared. The world, through spoken law, full of noise and doubt, told me to hustle, to chase, to break myself against the grindstone of ambition, through spoken law. But I turned instead to the invisible supply, the storehouse of substance waiting on the vibration of my voice. I learned that the spoken word, rooted in faith, is more powerful than any strategy, more enduring than any scheme. Every morning I would speak the words, not in fear, not in haste, but in knowing. I said, there is nothing to fear. There is only God, and God is abundance. I said, all that is mine by divine now comes to me in perfect ways under grace. And I believed it, even when the evidence was invisible, especially when it was. I understood the law that what I feel, what I affirm, becomes my experience. That wealth is not something to be earned, but through spoken law but recognized. These words were not just affirmations, they were decrees. Each syllable a hammer striking the forge of the unseen, but through spoken law, shaping gold from the ether. People asked me how I did it. They wanted to know the trick, the tactic, the business model. But through spoken law, I smiled. For it was simpler and more profound than they could imagine. I simply aligned my speech with truth, and truth delivered what was mine. Let no one tell your words are idle. The subconscious mind does not joke. Every word is a seed, but through spoken law, and every seed bears fruit, whether you will it or not. I began to watch my mouth as carefully as a banker watches his vault. I spoke only of prosperity, of overflow, of divine compensation. I did not say, want, I said, I have. I did not say, I hope, I said, I know. And so the universe, obedient and exact, through spoken law, arranged itself accordingly. Your word is your wand. Speak with intention. This truth is simple, yet it holds infinite power. The universe is not moved by wishful thinking, nor does it respond to empty repetition. It listens, attentively and without error, but through spoken law, to the quality of your word, to the vibration of your speech, the belief behind your phrases, and the certainty with which you declare your reality. Your word is not casuative. It is the mold from which your experience is cast. To speak without intention is to live without direction. To speak with power, clarity, and purpose is to step into your rightful place as the designer of your destiny. Every word we speak is a command sent into the invisible realm. This invisible realm is not fantasy. It is the very substance from which visible things emerge. What you cannot yet see is far more real than what you can see, because the seen is temporary, through spoken law, while the unseen is eternal. When you speak, you are not merely describing your world. You are scripting it, but through spoken law. Most people do not realize that their current circumstances are echoes of their past declarations. The words they spoke in fear, frustration, but through spoken law, or carelessness have silently taken root and blossomed into outcomes they do not recognize as their own creations. Spoken law. To speak with intention is to understand that your word is law in your world. It carries authority. It carries momentum. But through spoken law, it carries a charge that moves into form the moment it is uttered with belief. Speaking with intention means you no longer say things to fill silence. You do not speak out of habit or in reaction. You speak as one who knows that your words are spells, and you are always casting them, whether you know it or not. A person who speaks with intention does not say, through spoken law, I can't afford it, because they know that to say so is to affirm lack. Instead, they say, it is not yet in my current plan, through spoken law, but it will come when needed. A person who speaks with intention does not say, I always get sick, or nothing ever works out for me, because they know these words plant seeds of repeated misfortune. Instead, but through spoken law, they affirm health, success, and ease, even in the face of contrary appearances. They speak what they wish to live, not what they fear to repeat. The one who uses the word with care knows that language is not just communication. It is creation. The universe, like a servant without opinion, receives every word and reflects it without distortion. If you say, I never win. The universe says, as you wish. If you say, everything works out for me, it echoes, so it shall be. It is not personal, it is law. And law does not waver. This is why idle words are dangerous. Casual complaints, sarcastic self-deprecation, expressions of doubt. They all register. The subconscious does not understand irony or exaggeration. It only receives and obeys. A phrase spoken repeatedly, even in jest, becomes a belief. And belief becomes form. That is why those who master life first master their tongue. They do not allow their word to wander aimlessly. They harness it. They discipline it. They direct it like a stream toward fertile ground. It takes awareness to speak with intention. It means pausing before responding. Spoken law. It means refusing to repeat the old story just to connect with others in their drama. It means being willing to sound different, to be misunderstood, to stand alone in truth. But the reward is great. Your life begins to align with your highest good. You speak your path into being, and through spoken law, and it opens before you. Speaking with intention does not mean forcing or begging. It means choosing words that are in harmony with the life you desire. It means affirming what is true in spirit, even if it has not yet appeared in form. You speak not to describe the condition, but to declare the truth behind it. When the world says, this is impossible, you say, with the divine, but through spoken law, all things are possible. In your mind says, you're not ready, you say, all that I need is within me now. When the facts say, you have failed, you say, every step is progress, I cannot fail. This is not denial, it is divine alignment. You are not ignoring reality. You are choosing which reality to energize. Every word carries energy. You must ask, does this word drain me or build me? Does it reflect fear or faith? Through spoken law, does it limit or expand my experience? The answers will show you whether you are using your wand to build your kingdom or curse your own garden. To speak with intention is to become intimate with silence. You speak less, but you say more. You no longer waste your words on gossip, complaint. You, through spoken law or opinion, you recognize that every word is a seed, and you will only speak that which you are willing to see grow. If you do not want more of it, you do not speak it. If you do not believe in it, you do not give it power by naming it. This kind of speech is magnetic. It draws to you the people, resources, and conditions that match your vibration. You no longer chase success, you speak it. You no longer beg for love, you affirm it. But through spoken law, you do not ask life for permission, you command it with grace. Your word goes before you and prepares the way. You, through spoken law, you begin to understand that even when others around you speak in fear, you do not have to join them. Their reality is not yours unless you claim it. You become a guardian of your speech. You bless instead of criticize. You affirm instead of deny. You speak life over your finances, your body, your relationships. You speak harmony into your home, clarity into your decisions, peace into your day. And every time you do, something unseen shifts. The invisible begins to crystallize. Opportunities come where there were walls. Ideas flow where there was confusion. Healing begins where there was pain, but through spoken law. Because you have returned to your original power, the power of the word that was in the beginning, the word that creates worlds, the word that cannot return void. Afroken learn abundance, not lack. This single principle has the power to transform a life from struggle to flow, from confusion to clarity, but through spoken law, from just enough to more than enough. Most people speak of what they do not have, what is missing, but through spoken law, what they fear might be taken from them, and then wonder why their lives mirror those very things. The universe, which operates by law, not chance, delivers not what we wish for, but what we consistently affirm with emotion and conviction. If we affirm lack, we experience lack. If we affirm abundance, we begin to live it. Abundance is not only about money. It is a state of mind, a spiritual condition, but through spoken law, a deep inner knowing that there is always more ideas, more opportunities, more time, more health, more peace, more love. Spoken law. To affirm abundance is to anchor yourself in this truth. It means you choose to recognize the infinite source behind all visible supply. You no longer look to people, jobs, or systems as your provider. You see them only as channels, while the true source is divine, invisible, and unlimited. When people affirm lack, they are usually unaware. Through spoken law, they say things like, "I can't afford that, money is tight, there's never enough time," or, "I'll never get ahead." These words, spoken repeatedly and believed emotionally, become instructions to the subconscious mind. The subconscious, which governs most of our experience, does not argue or analyze. It accepts whatever is consistently spoken or imagined and seeks to express it. So if you affirm limitation, and through spoken law, your mind and circumstances organize themselves to match that belief. Affirming abundance begins with awareness, but through spoken law, you begin to notice the words you use when you talk about money, time, energy, or support. You ask yourself, am I affirming lack? Or am I affirming overflow? When you say, "I never have enough," you pause and revise it. "I always have more than I need." When you think, "This is too expensive," you say instead, "If this is for me." But through spoken law, it will come to me in divine order. You replace every phrase of limitation with a statement of truth. Not because you're pretending, but through spoken law, but because you are choosing to align with a higher reality. The truth is that abundance is natural. Look at nature. It does not hoard or withhold. Trees produce countless leaves, flowers bloom in clusters, oceans overflow with life, and stars fill the night sky beyond number. There is no shortage in the divine plan. The only shortage exists in the human mind, and only when we believe in separation. Separation from source, separation from good, separation from others. But once you return to the awareness of oneness, that you and divine substance are not separate, you begin to affirm abundance as your natural state, through spoken law. Affirming abundance does not mean denying current challenges. It means choosing a new point of focus. Instead of saying, "I'm broke," you say, "I am in the process of attracting new channels of income." Instead of saying, "I'm overwhelmed," you say, "But through spoken law, I am supported and everything is unfolding in perfect time." You begin to speak not of what is missing, but of what is possible. You begin to feed the solution, not the problem. This shift in language opens doors. Ideas come, resources appear, people offer help. You find yourself guided step by step, not through force, but through alignment. The mind will resist at first. It will say, "But look at the bills." But through spoken law, "Look at your bank account. This is just wishful thinking." But you must persist. You must remember that what is seen is temporary, through spoken law, but what is unseen is eternal. The visible is just a reflection of past thinking. The invisible is where change begins. So you affirm abundance not because it is already visible, but because it is already true. You affirm until it becomes visible. You speak it into form, but through spoken law. Many people believe that if they just get more money, they'll feel abundant. But it is the other way around. You must first feel abundant, but through spoken law, and then money, or whatever form of supply you need, flows to match that feeling. This is the secreting emotion is the magnet. Words backed by faith create. Words backed by doubt dissipate. When you affirm abundance, do it with feeling. Not desperation, but quiet confidence. Not begging, but declaring. You say, "I am richly blessed in every way," and you feel it. You say, "Money comes to me easily and frequently," and you expect it. You say, "I live in an abundant universe," and you act like it. This requires trust. Through spoken law, trust in a higher law. Trust that you are not forgotten. Trust that there is more than enough for you and for everyone else through spoken law. Some people fear that affirming abundance is greedy or selfish. But true abundance thinking is never about taking from others through spoken law. It is about knowing that there is no competition in the realm of spirit. No one else can block your good. Your success does not diminish anyone else's. In fact, it adds to the collective evidence of what is possible. When you affirm abundance, but through spoken law, you give others permission to do the same. You lift the standard of what is acceptable and invite others to rise with you. Affirming abundance also means releasing old stories. Stories of struggle, of lack, of, "That's just how it's always been." These stories feel familiar, but they are not fixed. They are optional. You can choose to tell a new story. One where things work out, where doors open, where you are always supported. This new story becomes your script, through spoken law. You recite it daily. You affirm it when you walk, when you wait. You write it down. You speak it aloud. Spoken law. You live as though it is already so, and soon it is. Gratitude amplifies abundance. When you give thanks for what you have, even if it seems small, you tell the universe, I am ready for more. You shift your focus from what is missing to what is present, and what you focus on expands. So you say, thank you for this meal, and better meals come. You say, thank you for this opportunity, and more arrive. You say, through spoken law, thank you for the money I do have, and the flow increases. Gratitude affirms abundance without effort. It is a quiet, powerful way to speak abundance into being. There is no special time or condition required to begin affirming abundance. Through spoken law, you do not have to wait until things improve. You begin right where you are. You speak it when the bank account is low. You affirm it when the schedule is full. You declare it when you feel uncertain. This is when it matters most. Through spoken law, to affirm abundance in the face of lack is the highest form of faith. It is the turning point. It is the moment when your reality begins to shift from the inside out. You are not required to fix everything at once, but through spoken law, you are only required to change the frequency of your word, one thought at a time, one phrase at a time, one belief at a time. You start by noticing what you say about money, time, health, relationships, and opportunity. You ask yourself, am I affirming overflow or limitation? Am I speaking the language of the kingdom or the language of fear? And then you choose again. You speak life. You speak increase. You speak possibility. Through spoken law, you speak as one who knows that the power to create wealth, joy, and peace has been within you all along, waiting only for the command. Feel it, affirm it, and it becomes reality. This is not a metaphor, not a poetic ideal. It is law. The law of mind, the law of vibration, the law of manifestation. Everything begins in the unseen. Every visible thing was first invisible. Every condition that appears in your world was once just a vibration, an emotion. Through spoken law, thought. And the moment you combine clear affirmation with true feeling, you set creation in motion. It is not enough to speak empty words. The words spoken law, the words must be alive. They must be charged with belief, saturated with emotion, carried on the current of inner knowing. That is when your words leave the realm of noise and become commands to the universe. You can say, I am wealthy, 1,000 times, but through spoken law. But if you feel anxious, unworthy, or doubtful as you say it, you are not planting a seed of wealth. You are reinforcing the feeling of lack. Through spoken law, the subconscious mind listens not to the words alone, but to the feeling behind the words. It is feeling that impresses the idea, but through spoken law, it is feeling that seals the instruction. That is why two people can say the same affirmation, but one experiences transformation and the other does not. The one who feels it receives it. The one who recites without faith sees no change. The heart must be involved. The process is simple, through spoken law, but it requires presence. You choose an affirmation that aligns with your desired reality, not a wish or a fantasy, but a truth you are claiming. Then you say it not as a beggar hoping to be heard, but as a creator commanding the invisible. You say it slowly, deliberately, with full attention, but through spoken law, you allow yourself to feel the words as if they were already true. You imagine the feeling of already having what you desire, the peace, the gratitude, but through spoken law, the confidence. You let it rise up in you, even if just for a moment, and that moment becomes the seed of the new reality. Through spoken law, most people affirm their fears without realizing it. They feel fear and speak it into form. They feel doubt and name it out loud. Through spoken law, they feel worry and feed it with language. And so they continue to create from the same emotional blueprint through spoken law. But the one who understands this law reverses the pattern. They feel the outcome they desire before it arrives. They act as if it is already theirs. But through spoken law, they become a match for it energy. They feel abundance before the money comes. They feel health before the body is healed. They feel peace before the storm ends. And by doing so, they call it in. The feeling is the prayer. The affirmation is the tool. But it is the feeling that gives it life. That is why visualization works. Not because of the image, but because of the emotion it stirs. But through spoken law, when you imagine your desired life vividly and with joy, you enter the frequency of that life. Through spoken law, the subconscious does not know the difference between what is real and what is vividly felt. But through spoken law, It accepts the impression as fact and begins to reorganize your outer world to match the inner feeling. But through spoken law, to affirm and not feel is like planting seeds without water. Nothing takes root. But to affirm with feeling is to create with power. Feeling is the magnet. Feeling is the fuel. When you combine belief and emotion, you activate the law. You no longer chase results. You become the result. Through spoken law, the outer world becomes a mirror of the inner world. And that is why the work is always inward first, through spoken law. Some people wait for conditions to change before they feel better. But the truth is, you must feel better to change the conditions. But through spoken law, you must rise emotionally before you rise circumstantially. You must find the vibration of joy, success, but through spoken law, or abundance within you before it shows up around you. That is why gratitude is so powerful. It generates the feeling of already having. But through spoken law, when you say thank you for what has not yet appeared, you collapse time. You bring the future into the present. Through spoken law, you live in the result before it manifests, and so it must manifest. This does not mean you force emotion. You do not need to fake it. But through spoken law, you only need to reach for a better feeling, a small shift, a gentle turn toward trust, hope, appreciation. But through spoken law, you may not leap from despair to ecstasy in one moment, but you can move gradually. You can find something to feel good about. You can affirm something small with sincerity. You can build emotional momentum. You can practice the feeling of your chosen reality daily. Through spoken law, like a musician tuning their instrument, you learn the vibration, you rehearse it, you dwell in until it becomes familiar. The more you feel it, the more natural it becomes. And as it becomes natural, it becomes real. Life begins to reflect your inner state. But through spoken law, you find yourself attracting different people, different opportunities, different outcomes. But through spoken law, you are not surprised when things shift, because you already felt the shift within. This is not coincidence. It is cause and effect. It is the law working as it always does, faithfully and precisely. Affirmations without feeling are like shadows without substance, through spoken law. But affirmations with feeling are like arrows shot from a bow of faith. They fly straight to their target. The universe responds not to begging, but to conviction, not to repetition, but to resonance. When you affirm, let it ring in your being. Let it vibrate in your chest. Let it echo in your cells. That is when you know you have spoken not just words, but creation itself. The power of feeling is available in every moment. You can tune to it now. You can stop what you are doing, close your eyes, speak your truth, and feel its reality. Even if just for a few seconds. That alignment does more than hours of frantic action. Feeling moves mountains. Feeling rewrites patterns. Feeling collapses resistance. It is the language of spirit, and spirit never fails to answer it. You do not need to be perfect in your practice. You only need to be sincere. Even with spoken law, even if doubt returns, even if fear creeps in, you return to the feeling. You return to the affirmation. You return to the truth you are claiming. You do not argue with appearances. You do not plead with circumstances. You simply state with calm certainty, this is mine. It is done. But through spoken law, I feel it breathe. And you know. And you allow the unseen to become seen, just as the sun rises after the long night. Through spoken law, speak in the present. I have, not I want. The way we use language shapes our reality more than we know. But through spoken law, the moment you say, you declare separation. You affirm that what you desire is not here. You place it outside of yourself, far off in a future that never quite arrives. Wanting affirms lack. Wanting confirms distance. But when you say, I have, you move into the vibration of possession, of alignment, of readiness. You speak not from longing, but from knowing. You step into the now, and the now is where all power resides. The present tense is the language of creation. It is the only moment that truly exists. The past is memory, the future is imagination, but the now is where energy becomes matter, where thought becomes form, where desire becomes fulfillment. Spoken law. When you say, I have everything I need, you call it into this moment. You draw it toward you. You act as the cause, not the effect. You stop chasing and begin attracting. People often say, through spoken law, I want more money. I want a better job. I want love. But these statements keep the desire out of reach. Through spoken law, the universe responds to the energy of certainty, not yearning. To say, I want, is to announce that something is missing through spoken law. To say I have is to affirm that is already yours in essence, and essence precedes form. But through spoken law, you begin to feel the reality of your good even before it shows up on your doorstep, and because you feel it, you become aligned with it. And because you are aligned, it flows to you. This is not pretending, but through spoken law. It is choosing to identify with your future self, the self that already lives in the reality you desire. When you say, I have, you are not lying, but through spoken law, you are speaking the truth of spirit, not the illusion of circumstance. You are recognizing the unseen as more real than the seen. You are remembering that creations on the invisible plane. Everything begins as a vibration, a pattern, a word, but through spoken law, and the words you speak repeatedly shape that pattern. Your subconscious mind responds to what you affirm now. Through spoken law, it does not understand time the way the conscious mind does. It does not sort desires into future or past. It receives commands as present instructions. So if you constantly say, I want, the subconscious takes it literally and keeps you in the state of wanting. It will organize your experiences to match the condition of yearning. But if you begin saying, I have, even before the outer evidence appears, but through spoken law, the subconscious begins to shift your identity. It starts to create alignment between who you are and what you have declared. You say, through spoken law, I have more than enough money. And even if your account doesn't reflect it yet, you are stepping into the energy of sufficiency. You say, through spoken law, I have loving, supportive relationships. And you begin to radiate that energy, making you a magnet for those kinds of connections. You say, I have perfect health. And your body begins to respond to the image you are holding. The words create an emotional state, but through spoken law, the emotional state becomes a belief, and belief begins to shape the material. To speak in the present is to live as if, not as a performance, but through spoken law, but as a commitment. You act as if your good is already unfolding, because on the spiritual plane it is. You trust the process, but through spoken law, not because of external proof, but because you understand the law. You know that thought and feeling precede experience. Through spoken law, you know that the law must bring into form whatever is consistently affirmed with feeling. You become a conscious creator, no longer a victim of circumstance. This practice requires awareness. It means catching yourself when you slip into language of lack or future projection. Instead of saying, I hope this happens someday, you say, I welcome this into my life now. Instead of saying, through spoken law, I'm trying to get there, you say, I am already on the path, and everything I need is unfolding now. These are subtle shifts, but they create profound change. Words are not passive, they are seeds. You must choose them carefully. There is power in declaring. There is power in naming your reality as already complete. This is not arrogance or delusion, it is spiritual law. When you say, I am blessed, you bless yourself. When you say, I am wealthy, you begin to resonate with wealth. When you say, through spoken law, I am healed, you invite every cell in your body to rise into alignment. You are not describing the condition, you are designing it. Spoken law, some people resist this idea. They think it's unrealistic or dishonest to speak what they don't yet see, but through spoken law. But what they don't realize is that they're already doing it, just in the opposite direction. They say, I'm always broke. And so they are. Spoken law, they say, I never get ahead. And life reflects that belief. Speaking the negative is not more honest. It's just more familiar. But what is familiar is not always what is true. Truth is abundance, wholeness, love, harmony. These are the realities of spirit, but through spoken law. And when you speak in the present tense, you give them permission to manifest. To say, I will, or I want, is to place your good on layaway, but through spoken law. But to say I am, or I have, is to take spiritual ownership. It is to become the vessel through which the unseen can become seen. Through spoken law, you align your speech with your vision, and your vision with your feeling, and your feeling with your actions. This alignment produces results, not through strain, not through resonance. You begin to notice shifts, your energy changes, people respond differently to you. Opportunities open, guidance becomes clearer. You no longer speak of delays or obstacles. You speak of unfolding. You say, everything is working in my favor, and it does. You say, the money I need is already on its way, and it comes. You say, I am in perfect timing, and your steps are ordered, not because you forced anything, but because you spoke as one who knows, but through spoken law. This practice becomes a habit. You speak in the present without effort. You no longer need to convince yourself. The words feel natural because they are now your truth. You begin to live from the end, not toward it. You walk as if it is already done. You speak with assurance. You carry yourself with peace. You affirm daily, through spoken law, I have everything I need, deeply provided for. I am guided and supported in all things. And the world begins to echo your declarations, but through spoken law. What you have claimed within begins to shape what you see without. Words backed by faith shape your world. Not words spoken with fear, doubt, or obligation, but words infused with belief, with spiritual certainty, with the unwavering inner knowing that what is declared will be made manifest, but through spoken law. It is not the sound of the words that changes reality, nor the length of the sentence, but through spoken law, nor the frequency of repetition alone. It is the energy that carries the word that activates the law. That energy is faith. And faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unformed and the formed, the ideal and the real. Faith is not hoping, but through spoken law. Faith is not wishing. Faith is not straining or pleading. Faith is resting in the assurance that what you affirm is already done in the invisible realm. When you speak a word with faith, it goes forth with power. It becomes a decree. It becomes law in your world, through spoken law. It takes root in the subconscious and begins to shape the events, relationships, and conditions of your life in perfect order and perfect timing. A faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It is the creative force behind all true manifestation. Many people speak affirmations, yet nothing changes because they are filled with doubt. They say, I am abundant, but their hearts are full of fear. They say, I am healthy, but their minds are consumed by worry. The words may be right, but the power is missing. The belief is not present, spoken law. The vibration is scattered. Without faith, words fall to the ground. But when belief is present, even a few words, quietly spoken, can move mountains. But through spoken law, faith gives life to the word. The word becomes a container for your consciousness. It becomes a vessel into which you pour your certainty. You speak it, but through spoken law, not to convince yourself or anyone else, but to align yourself with truth. When you declare, everything is working out for me, and you believe it, you are not merely making a hopeful statement. You are activating spiritual law. You are planting a seed that must bear fruit, spoken law. That seed is charged with power because it is backed by the emotion of faith. Faith does not always come from seeing results. It comes from understanding the nature of universal law. It comes from practicing inner alignment until it becomes your default state. Faith is not passive. It is cultivated. It is a decision to believe. It is a discipline of the soul. It is the quiet, unshakable trust that your words are not empty. They are creative. They are precise. They are heard and obeyed by the subconscious and the infinite intelligence that governs all things. Words backed by faith do not beg. They declare. Spoken law, they do not plead for change. They create, say, I am divinely guided. And you believe it, you begin to notice synchronicities. You begin to hear the still, small voice. You begin to follow intuitive nudges. When you say, my body is whole and strong, and you say it with conviction, your body begins to respond. Cells begin to regenerate. Energy begins to flow. Healing begins to unfold. The spoken word, when filled with faith, becomes a tool of transformation. It reprograms the subconscious mind. It rearranges external conditions. It magnetizes new experiences. And it does so without effort, without force, without manipulation. Faith does not strain. Faith rests. It is not anxious. It is confident. It is calm. Through spoken law, it is the state of knowing that nothing is impossible and that your word cannot return void. The greatest masters of manifestation have always known this. They spoke with authority. They knew that every declaration, when made in alignment with truth and charged with faith, must come to pass. They did not wonder if it would happen. They knew, and because they knew, the word had dominion. The same power exists in you. The same law responds to your voice. The same infinite intelligence acts upon your belief. But to access this power, through spoken law, you must become conscious of what you are affirming. Most people speak carelessly. They affirm sickness, poverty, confusion, but through spoken law, and delay without realizing it. They speak of what they fear rather than what they choose. They let their words be dictated by outer appearances, but through spoken law, forgetting that appearances are temporary and shaped by inner causes. But the one who speaks with faith does not describe the current scene. They speak the truth behind it. They do not affirm what is. They affirm what is becoming. To speak with faith is to plant the future into the present. It is to say, "It is done," even when nothing has yet shifted in form. It is to stand in the middle of difficulty and say, "I am safe, I am guided, I am victorious," and mean it. That vibration begins to move everything. People will begin to treat you differently. Opportunities will appear. Resistance will dissolve. You do not know how the path will unfold, but you do not need to. You have spoken the word, and your faith has set it in motion. This is not superstition. It is spiritual law. The universe responds to vibration, and the highest vibration is the combination of word and belief through spoken law. When these two align, when the inner matches the outer, when the affirmation is not only spoken but felt, known, expected, the results are certain. You become the cause, not the effect. You become the artist, not the observer. You begin to live from your power, not your fear, through spoken law. It is not about saying more, it is about saying less with more belief. One sentence, backed by faith, can change your entire life. I am free. I am loved. I am wealthy now. Everything is unfolding for my highest good. These are not just pretty phrases. They are spiritual commands, but through spoken law, and when spoken with conviction, they move energy, they shift paradigms, they restructure your reality. You must learn to speak with clarity. Do not water down your words with conditions, doubts, or escape clauses. Say what you mean what you say. Declare the truth and stand in it. Speak only what you want to multiply. And believe in the power of your word. Let your affirmations become sacred. Let your declarations become deliberate, through spoken law. Let every word you speak be infused with the knowing that it is already done. Train yourself to feel the truth as you speak it. Don't just repeat the affirmation, embody it. Breathe it in. Let it vibrate through you, through spoken law. Let the energy of your faith carry the word forward into the field of creation, the subconscious mind, the universal law, not through spoken law, the divine source. All are responding. All are working in harmony with your inner conviction. This is how worlds are built. This is how healing comes. This is how doors open. This is how peace is found. Not through striving or shouting, but through calm, centered, spoken law. Intentional words that arise from a foundation of faith. You do not need to convince anyone else. You only need to convince yourself, but through spoken law. The moment you believe it, the word becomes flesh. The moment you know it in your being, it must be revealed. The unseen becomes seen. Through spoken law, the inner becomes outer. The seed becomes the tree not because of effort, but because of alignment, because of certainty, but through spoken law, because the word was spoken and backed by the unshakable energy of faith.